let's try and fix the sound there. And while we do that, as Majority Leader Aden Duale is speaking, let's try and fix that sound. We'll get back to that in a moment. I'm still with Mulle Musau, who's a coordinator at the Election Observers Group. Describe the atmosphere today. What does this tell you about, you know, the election that we're heading into just 8 months away?
At the very least, it is a very alarming situation that we're having in our country today. And I started by saying that the process which started some time ago, where we said where the country felt that the commissioners who are there needed to leave office, and then we took the opportunity to be able to try to amend a number of laws along with that, so that we can be able to address some of the issues which are obtaining from 2013. Now, what we are seeing today is a far departure from the process that was employed then. We know election process is about being consultative as much as possible. We need an election process which is as predictable as possible. We want one which is as transparent as possible and one which is very efficient. Now, what you've seen, and you've seen the pictures coming from Parliament, I mean, coming 3 days to Christmas.
You can't tell it's Christmas, can you?
It's not really the kind of atmosphere that we want in this country, and that is not the kind of atmosphere that we want in the lead-up, 7 months and counting, you know, to the coming elections. The process, for me, in Parliament, we had the joint parliamentary process where issues were debated. And I think in the morning you had a number of senators who were in your show who discussed from both sides of the divide, who expressed even a need then in Parliament to have an extension of that committee should there be any further amendments which would be needed. Of course, granted that the JLAC is a committee of the House, which must be having both members of the divide. But at the end of the day, you do not want to come out to the public showing a divided position, because the elections are about the people, and the opposition and the government side all represent the people. So when you see a debate on the people's election being done on a day where Parliament has been cordoned off, police presence is all over the place. Parliamentarians are throwing words.
Is out of bounds.
Yes, the press is not being allowed to cover.
Some journalists have been roughed up.
Yes, and they're fighting themselves. I mean, the representatives of the people from both sides of the divide, we've heard that each of them is claiming, claiming that they were hit by that's not the kind of environment that you want to have. That's not the kind of leadership that you want to see in the run-up to what potentially will be a very complicated election that is coming in 2017.
All right, let's talk about the sort of bipartisan approach. Do you think it was too late for us to go back, even though the term and the mandate of the Joint Parliamentary Select Committee that came up with the amendments to these laws, even though that term and mandate ended, was there a place to perhaps bring Orengo and Kiraitu Murungi back and to start to discuss this? Or let me put it differently. Was there political will for that to happen? When
discussing matters of law, we speak about the letter and the spirit. And on this particular matter, the spirit of the law is what we've been carrying along with. We know the term ended for the JPSC and that JLAC had even taken up the process. But where there are controversial amendments which are being suggested, it is proper that the spirit is invoked again for people to come together, sit together, agree on the issues on the table. And there are issues. We're not saying that there are issues on those amendments. There are things which need to be amended, but they need to be processed in a consultative manner where they sit together and propose the amendments to the larger team, which is the larger committees of the House.
All right, but to be fair, the court legislators walked out of that sitting. They briefed the press. They are now walking in the rain in the streets of Nairobi towards Milimani Law Courts. Some say that they should have been in the legislature, right now when these amendments were being passed, to at least have their voice heard. We heard the Deputy Speaker there just passing all of these amendments. The ayes have it. There was no one to oppose except for Member of Parliament Joanna Ngeno. Should they have stayed in the House?
Well, I think the question is much more about what was the process going to be. These are issues which have been consulted outside the House, and every coalition seemed to have had their position as far as those laws were concerned. I think the issues about yes, they should have stayed in the House and represented the people and gave their own opinions. I don't think it would have made the difference, and I think that's the reason why they walked out, because at the end of the day, what you need in making this amendment is simple majority. I think they must have, deduced that they do not have the required numbers to be able to make any substantial changes to those particular laws. But it is also an issue which is reminiscent of what happens in 2013, when in what we used to call the midnight laws, where things were being done fast-tracked, and we saw the proceedings in Parliament, where we're just reading the bill, nobody's really interrogating the issues, and I mean, decisions had already been done, and the atmosphere under which the acrimony under which you're passing these particular laws is not the right spirit for such changes to happen in the country.
Court principals are in court to challenge the legality of the sitting. They say they're now going to change that to challenge the outcome. What do you think is going to happen there? And we've also heard Majority Leader Aden Duale making some rather strong accusations against a member of the judiciary, Justice Odunga, to be precise.
I think first, of course, in terms of seeking redress in the courts, that every Kenyan, be it the Prime Minister, be it any other member, individual in the Kenya, can be able to seek redress in the same. So there's nothing wrong with the Prime Minister or the former Prime Minister and the other opposition seeking redress in the same. What I have a major problem with is spiking issues within the judiciary. If you want these elections to happen in an atmosphere which is free and which is fair, where there's justice, there are elements. We want to build on all the institutions that are going to be very critical to this election. Now, when the majority leader, speaks very adversely of a member of the judiciary and even names them in public, I think that is spiking. I think that is interfering with the judiciary, and there's a separation of powers. I thought that is what a government is supposed to be about, that the judiciary, the parliament, and the executive are three different arms, and each of them check the other. Interfering with that process, in my view, is actually meddling and creating further confusion and muddling into the waters of the judiciary.
The converse of that is then that when the judiciary makes certain rulings on what the legislature can and cannot do, can and cannot discuss, some say the reverse is also true, that a judge cannot sit and decide that, parliamentarians are not going to discuss a certain issue or challenge that legality. So talk to us about that balance, what the judiciary can and cannot do to the legislature and vice versa.
I think the law is very clear in terms of what the executive is required to do. Where there are excesses, they are checked by the other arms of government. Where if there's an excess in terms of what the judiciary can be able to do, or even what parliament can be able to do, the other arms of government, and that's what we call the checks and balances. So if there's an excess, there are procedures which can be used be able to address those particular excesses. But you do not take this to the public gallery. You don't do these things in the public domain. I don't think if there are excesses to do with the executive arm of government, they are not taken. You don't take that to the public gallery for debate. But there are procedures. It can be redress can be sought in the courts. Parliament can also be able to make laws to amend those particular issues which they think is excessive as far as the judiciary is concerned. There are procedures. We are a sober nation. We have laws in this country. And when people get out of that framework, then that is what you call impunity. Okay. It gets out of hand.
All right. Mulle Musau, who is the coordinator with ELO, continue to stay with us here on News Center as we analyze the situation, the events that have taken place both at the National Assembly and at the judiciary. We understand CORD MPs are getting closer to Milimani Law Courts. Jacoya Midi was speaking now. Let's go.
Well, no. We were in Parliament. We walked out of a very sad situation where the government brought in hundreds of policemen, and the government allowed Jubilee members of Parliament to walk into the chamber with ammunitions, with guns, and pepper spray, and all kinds of crude things. We have members of Parliament here who have been assaulted. And our position is that the sitting today had several issues that we think are unlawful. We know the Speaker could have allowed us, because the sitting was from 9:30 to midnight. But the Speaker, because he knew it is tyranny of the brains versus the tyranny of numbers. So I think it is really silly that we, even with the numbers, they don't know that allowing us to debate, then we vote, they would still win on the floor of the House. Now, what have we done? You have walked with us from Parliament. We have taken our case to the street. And that is where we will be when all else fail. The streets, the language tyrants understand is the language of the people. And that is why we have walked symbolically up to here. Then we have also come to the House of Justice. We have also come to the House of Justice. We do have a case by our lawyers going on in here, which is about the legality of what is going on. What we are here to do now, we are going to wait, to keep vigil, and wait for justice to talk. We know they can have their way with guns inside the chamber illegally, but we know they cannot intimidate the judges. So we are here, and it is going to be the beginning of a very long last 7 months of Uhuru. A very long last 7 months. They have called for it, and we will answer. What they are trying to change was a product of an agreement where Uhuru chose his people and court chose their people. So what is it that makes Ruto, Uhuru, Duale, Muturi think they can alter what we agreed even before the 6 months, which is the normal tradition before you amend or attempt to amend any law? What is it? It is because they are trying to force a law to rig the elections. And we have said it is stupid. It is okay to be stupid once, but it is wrong to be stupid twice. There will never be another election like 2007 when we thought and trusted in the Kibaki government. We will not trust Uhuru, we will not trust Ruto, and we do not trust them. So it is going to be now, minute by minute, war until Kenya is liberated from mediocrity. I want to ask my sister, Shukran, to say something.
Kwanza ninataka kurudishia shukrani. Nataka kurudishia shukrani media fraternity. Ya kwanza leo tulikuja asubuhi, tulikuja bunge wakati tumefika pale, na ninataka kuongea na wakina mama wa Kenya hii. Mheshimiwa Manaume amekuja upande sisi opposition ama coalition tunakaa, akakuja kumpiga ngume Honorable Wanga kwa matiti. Wakina mama wanaume kutoka Jubilee leo wametuonesha wakosea wakina mama, na tunasema na wamezima TV ili wasione. Mimi nilipoingia kuna mheshimiwa aliniambia tutawafua nguo. Kama ni hiyo maneno wanalete kwa bunge, tunajua serikali ya Jubilee leo wamekuja, juzi wameiba kura na leo wanataka kuiba. Na sisi kama wabunge tumechaguliwa na wananchi, na sisi ni sauti ya wananchi wa Kenya wote. Ndio tukasema wacha tusaidie wa Kenya. Na leo ni wakati wa Kenya wote wajitokeze na waongee na waoneshe sauti yao dunia nzima. Tunasema hiyo maneno hatutaki, ndio sababu tulitoka tukakuja kwa street. Kama tungekaa pale ndani, Jubilee members of parliament walikuja na bunduki na walikuja na pepper spray. So tukasema sisi kama wa leaders tukionyesha wananchi kupigana ndani ya bunge, je, ni nini itatendeka huko nje? Ndio tukasema wacha tukuje nje ndio tuoneshe wananchi kama tumedhulumiwa. Asanteni.
Now, first of all, I want to call Honorable Wafula Wamunyinyi to say one or two things. But before that, I want to really say sorry to the media fraternity for what happened to the Nation reporter in Parliament. You know, one of you has been beaten by police in Parliament.
And arrested.
And arrested. So we demand that whoever the release of that journalist.
Wonderful. Do you know the name of the journalist?
I will give it to you in a minute. I will give it to you in a minute.
Oh, okay. Hi, there you are.
Thank you very much. I think what has been witnessed today and the day before yesterday is one of the darkest. We have not had such thing in the history of Parliament. Even during the tenure of the dictatorship, the strong presidency of Moi, we never saw this in Parliament. You know, the determination with which this amendment is being pushed is evidence enough that Jubilee is afraid of going to elections under the present circumstance and must amend the law to pave way for rigging the election. And this has been seen obviously. You know, the organization of Jubilee members to attack our colleagues, particularly the women MPs. Why did they not, face men? They attacked women MPs and were violent with arms. Some of them are armed with guns, others with pepper sprays. This has not been seen in the history of our Parliament. We condemn this in the strongest terms, and we want to assure Jubilee that today marks the beginning of street works, and we're going to go on until the end, until this law is changed. We trust that the court which changed the law on security is also going to change this law when we finally get a ruling from the courts. Otherwise, we are so determined. We're going to move forward. We will not let Jubilee destroy this country. The democracy has been realized over time. We have built this democracy over time, and Jubilee is determined to destroy this. We will not allow it. Thank you.
I am now, I want to show them that our numbers are expanding. The chairman of Amani.
Correct. Thank you very much indeed. I stand up here to express my outrage and that of the fraternity of the Amani Coalition and the NASA Coalition in general. That what has happened today has put us in the leagues of countries like the Congo, and you know what's happening now. If you turn on TV, you'll see exactly what's happening in the Congo. That's the kind of league that we are joining. I think that we are making big mistakes. We are making a race to the bottom. Many countries have passed through this kind of thing, and we have time to get our sanity back. I am looking forward to a reversal of this decision by the court. And I do not think that people should sit back thinking that this is only an amendment of a part of a law. It's an indication of a fundamental intention by the Jubilee government to win in the coming elections at all costs and in all ways. And I think we owe it among our people that they have peace when elections come, that when we ask them to vote, they vote peacefully. The actions against the women MPs are some of the lowest you can expect in any country, even in a civilized one. And I would hope that when they get back, retreat to their corners, that they will get some spanking for what they have done today. I think it's really low. Let me end there by saying that we in the Amani Coalition and in the NASA fraternity broadly completely condemn this action, and we really wish that the powers that are wake up and see sense. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. I just want to say and send two messages. One is that Jubilee should never believe and think that they can make laws in Kenya by force. It can't happen that they make laws by force and intimidation. It is not the way laws are made. So coming into Parliament with arms and intimidation, with intent to harass and harm fellow members of Parliament so that they can legislate, is not the way our Constitution has designed how Kenyans are going to be governed. The point I want to make is that they are fooling Kenyans, saying that it is about availability of networks across the country that is forcing them to change these laws. Nothing is further from the truth. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you that there is no network required for a voter to be identified using the electronic identification device. You don't need a mobile network. Not at all. You just need to put your thumb on a machine which is powered, and all we know is that all the polling stations, the schools where the polls happen, all of them, including those in very remote areas like mine, now have electricity. Those gadgets will be powered. All we are saying is that we need an electronic machine to identify them. What they want is to make sure that on that particular day they switch off those machines and go back to the manual register where we have millions of dead people, where an individual can vote as many times as they wish. That is the way they stole votes in 2013. That is the way they want to steal votes in 2017. We will not allow that. You cannot fool Kenyans. There is no network required. We must be identified electronically for us to vote. You cannot fool us. We are smarter than you think. Kenyans are smarter than you think. And if you believe and think that you've won in Parliament, we will show you that Kenyans do not accept that kind of nonsense. Thank you very much.
I was assaulted. I was the one who was assaulted. Yes. Today, they came with a fixed mind. My sister Gladys Wanga went to ask Apuri Puri, why are you sitting on Nyenze's seat? He spitted on my sister. So mimi nikaenda kuambia Apuri, this is not fair. Sasa mangumi zikaanza. They came with a fixed mind. Watu tano walini assault. Wakasema wewe unafikiri hapo baba atakuja kukusaidia. Mimi nikasema sisi ni watu wa baba, usilete mambo ya baba. I think waliona tukidebate watashindwa. Saa hii ile kitu inatengenezwa.
All right, Ishad Sumra, Member of Parliament there, talking about the assault. And we've seen so many counterclaims of assault on both sides of the divide. I'm still here with Mulle Musau from the Election Observers Group. Indeed, I believe observation of Kenya's election and its electoral processes and systems has already begun. Mulle, let's talk a little bit about what was passed by the Jubilee MPs. Remember, the House has adjourned to the 24th of January. Now, when it comes to the voter identification system and the transmission of results, what we saw passed was for a complementary system for both voter ID and transmission of these results. So what does this mean?
I think earlier on I said that if you want a proper election system or process, it needs to be a predictable process. People need to know what you mean by this. Mm-hmm. You don't throw words like complementary system. What is complementary system? We know that there's going to be an EVID, which is electronic
voter identification
device.
Yeah.
An EVID has the register within it.
Right.
Within it, we have the register. But the same can even be, an output from that EVID can even be in terms of a physical copy that you can be able to have.
That comes out of that system.
Yeah, but that's still a product of the electronic process.
Right.
So when you talk about a complementary system, exactly what then do you mean?
Yeah.
Are you talking about something which is really out?
Do you think it should have been more specific?
If they want to debate these issues and make them very clear to Kenyans, they need to be very specific about what exactly are we talking about here. We know that the laws which were there earlier prescribed that we need to have a transmission, because they're talking about two complementary systems. First is on the identification, the second one is on the transmission.
Yes.
Now, I don't know what what is meant by a complementary system of transmission. Because now, are we talking about that we're going to have the RTS, which is the results transmission system, and we know that there are some physical ballots which are going to be left in those polling stations.
Right.
They can be used as backup in terms of any verifications which are necessary at some point in time. That always, even in the US, those are the things which are happening, where they needed to ever to go back and verify something. We have the physical evidence which is there. But at the constituency level, where all the tallying, especially for the presidential votes, are going to be taken, the result which is collected at that point is transmitted directly to the National Tallying Center. The later debates about where there are issues on this particular area, where verification is needed, is very clear. Now, when you talk about a complementary system, what then are you talking about? Are you talking about somebody picking those results and starting to rush them by road to Nairobi, or what are you saying? So it's not clear. And that's why we need
So
to have
should the law
time.
be that prescriptive up until, you know, to the finer details, that complementary would be a runner taking them by foot, by road, by air, or that sort of thing?
No. I don't think it ought to be that. And in fact, the Constitution actually lays down the line in terms of what we expect out of the process. It's supposed to be a simple, accurate, and efficient process.
Okay.
That is all the Constitution says.
Right.
It's supposed to be, you're supposed to be thinking, then how do we get this information to the tallying center? If we have a system which can be able to transmit these results, and these debates have been there. You know, we have systems now, technology, where you can even be able to WhatsApp, you know, those pages of the polling.
Yeah.
And I can assure you, in the 2017 election, even before the commission or IEBC is able to put their things together, very many Kenyans will have gotten all this information via other processes. So you want to create a system which will not create, we don't want to create, you know, a kind of, we muddle the entire affair, so we don't know this information coming from the media or this information coming from the CSO, which is observing the elections. We want them to have an efficient system. And the RTS done well, and there have been recommendations from the technical committee, which has been discussing the issues about technology and working with the IBC very closely. You can be able to have backup systems to support the same. But whatever you decide in terms of backup, my argument here is that we must know what we are talking about. It must be simple and it must be very clear so that we know this is the fallback position. But when you call it a complementary system, it's the same story. Remember the earlier argument when we had the principle, the so-called, we had the principal register. The amended laws removed the word principle because there were connotations to that. Does it mean that there are other
There's another
registers?
one,
So when you say complementary systems,
so complementary is different from backup.
Totally different.
Okay.
Complementary systems, and there was an S at the systems, so we also don't know how many other systems are we putting in place. So it doesn't make it very clear to even an observer like me. I need to know what am I supposed to be looking out for. When we don't use this machine, we move to this.
All right. Okay. We're talking about what's happening in Parliament right now, but there's also been a number of other incidents that have led up to where we are now, including that statement by the President about foreign interference. A few days later, we saw IFES and their activities being halted in their country. And, you know, those allegations about what IFES was or was not trying to do in the country. As an election observer, what did that whole sort of fiasco mean for you?
I think even it has been a very bad week for the electoral process in the country. Starting from with the issues about voter education. We're talking about voter education, where voters need to know.
And what is voter education? Now that we have you here as an expert, because there have been varying sort of definitions of this. On one side saying they're actually telling people how to vote and influence the outcome of the election. And we have civil society saying, no, this is voter education and voters need to know. The president says, Wakenya hawawezi kuambiwa vile kupiga kura. They know how to vote. So what is voter education?
The evidence is very clear in terms of why voters need to be given information. First, we have the kind of debates that we're having right now where we are being told about complementary systems. If, as an observer, I'm worried about the meaning of that, unpack that to a common mwananchi who is out there, who needs to know exactly how the process is going to be. The greater education in the country is civic education. That's the broader education where you want citizens to know about their country's processes, governance systems, and how to go about their business. But when it comes to voter education now, that is information of voter education is education which is related to the entire electoral process. And I say there are 8 phases of an election. We have, from the legal framework, how many people understand, how many people understand
what's just been passed
in terms of the legal framework? That's already a very complicated issue. You want information and education on those laws. There are offenses that people, every time there is an election, we hear that there was double registrations, there were spoiled votes and such kind of things. Why do they happen? Most of the people who caught up in those things don't even do it deliberately. They don't even know. Some people come and register in Nairobi. They'll walk to Machakos, my home village, and they'll also want to register in that village. They don't know, and that's an offense. So you want them educated in terms of this is the process through which you elect your leaders or you elect your representatives for the national organs, and therefore be able to partake or participate in it with an informed mind. And later on, we even move beyond just the broader voter education to even voter information, which is now much more related to the election day activities. How do you go from polling? Which polling station are you supposed to be in? That is not voter information. You go even breaking it down to simpler terms as you come closer to the election. But speaking about the just larger issues in terms of the week, and the issues which have happened, and why I'm saying it's a very bad thing for the country, we are seeing a lot of brinkmanship in terms of this. We are seeing the Code fraternity saying this, we are seeing the Jubilee fraternity coming and saying this, and we say the elections are for the people. I want to call upon the broader civil society, which includes the churches. This process was taken over when there was such kind of brinkmanship earlier in the year. The broader civil society led by the churches took over. And now we even have a process where we have a panel which is sitting to bring in new members into the commission. I'm calling upon them to make another intervention right now, because if things go this way they have gone for the last 1 week, where we are talking badly about the voter education process, we are also now talking about amending laws without any consultations. And again, we had what we were calling the multi-sectoral forum, where we were bringing a number of actors. Civil society actors have been there, observers, the churches, and any other, and the JPSC process also was consultative. We had a number of actors coming together, participating, giving memoranda, including individuals and Kenyans who had ideas about how we can be able to improve our electoral systems and laws. So where we have a debate over the same issues which were passed, the same process needs to be used. Consult as widely as possible. At the end of the day, you want a buy-in from everybody. At the election, we are not having one party which is going to contest an election. We're going to be having a number of parties, and there are varied interests from CSOs, from business.
So broaden this conversation beyond just the two political coalitions.
Election laws of a country can never be about the parliament. It has to go outside parliament and involve as many stakeholders as possible.
All right, thank you. Mulle Musau still with us from the Election Observers Group, and he's just talked about that process of finding the new commissioners. Let me just update you something before we take a break here on News Center, that selection panel has shortlisted the following and recommended to the President for the positions of Chair of the IEBC, Tukero Olekina and Wafula Chebukati. Those are the two nominees for appointment of Chairperson of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. And for the members, other commissioners, Zephania Okeyo Aura, Rosalind Kwamboka Akombe, Abdi Yakub Gulie, Professor Henry Kizito Okola, Samuel Kimeu, Paul Kibiwot Kurgat, Boya Molu, Consolata Nkatha, and Margaret Wanjala. Those are the nominees for commissioners of the IEBC. That is what is coming in as we continue here to analyze what is happening in the run-up to that election in August. Mulle, thank you. Continue to be with us as you educate us on matters to do with election and the electoral process. You're watching News Center. We're taking a quick break. We'll be back. Stay with us. We have all the latest updates